Every weekend across North America, perfectly rational couples spend um, hundreds,
Oh, sometimes thousands.
right, thousands of dollars on this beautifully engineered culinary masterpiece,
Yeah,
only to publicly dismantle it with a silver sword.
and occasionally smear it directly into each other's eyes.
Exactly. I mean, why? Think about the last wedding you attended.
Mm,
When the DJ announced the cake cutting, did you actually care about the cake?
probably not.
Right. Or were you just, waiting for the social cue that it was finally time to hit the open bar?
Yeah, it's usually the green light for the party to actually start.
Exactly. So today, our mission is to go way beyond the frosting. We are exploring the ceremonial cutting of the wedding cake and that highly anticipated, highly photographed act of feeding each other.
It's such a specific moment.
It really is. We're going to unpack the ancient history, the hidden symbolism, and the evolving cultural nuances of this whole ritual.
Which is a lot deeper than most people realize.
Oh, for sure. And to do this, we are pulling from comprehensive event planning guides, and we're leaning heavily into niche articles from the business and culture sections of Weddizer.
Yeah, Weddizer is fantastic for this.
Right. It's a platform completely dedicated to the deep traditions and the meticulous logistical planning of weddings.
It really is. And looking at it through that lens, I mean, the cake cutting is truly a profound sociological event disguised as a photo op.
Disguised as a photo op. I love that.
Yeah, because when you dig into the cultural and business analytics on a platform like Weddizer, you quickly realize these traditions aren't just random party games that somehow survived the test of time.
Right. They have actual roots.
Exactly. They are culturally significant rituals carrying massive psychological weight. And, they require immense logistical precision to pull off without completely alienating your guests.
Totally. So whether you are currently planning a wedding or maybe attending one this weekend, or you're simply fascinated by the strange things humans do when we gather in large groups.
Which is always a fun topic.
Oh, absolutely. Understanding the mechanics of this tradition is going to completely change how you watch this moment unfold.
You're really never going to look at a slice of cake the same way again.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Mm.
Because I feel like we need to strip away the modern icing and look at the historical foundation.
We do, because we tend to view the tiered wedding cake as this, creation of the modern wedding industrial complex.
Right.
But its roots actually stretch all the way back to ancient Rome.
See, I am fairly certain the ancient Romans weren't rolling out white fondant and placing edible sugar flowers on a 4-tier red velvet cake.
No, far from it. It was significantly more violent.
Violent.
Yeah, and a lot less sterile than what we see today. In ancient Rome, the marriage ceremony concluded with a ritual where the groom would literally break a loaf of barley or spelt cake over the bride's head.
Wait, really? Over her head?
Literally smash it over her head, yeah.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't a sweet dessert at all.
Not at all. It was a visceral, physical symbol of male dominance, actually, and a very literal wish for fertility.
A wish for fertility.
Right. Yeah, the breaking of the cake was meant to bring an abundance of children and good fortune to the couple.
Okay, but wait, they just smashed a loaf of bread over her head?
Huh?
What did the guests do while this was happening? Were they just watching?
Oh, they scrambled for the crumbs.
You kidding?
No, the guests would actually rush forward to scoop up the pieces that fell to the floor.
Off the floor.
Yeah, because those crumbs were believed to carry the bride's good luck and fertility. So it was this chaotic scramble for transferred prosperity.
That is a massive leap. From fighting over floor crumbs in ancient Rome to, quietly standing in a ballroom watching a couple gently slice into a pristine, towering confection.
It's a totally different vibe, yeah.
How did we get from a messy fertility ritual to this hyper-sterile, highly curated status symbol?
Well, the major shift happened in the 19th century, heavily influenced by Queen Victoria's wedding in 1840.
Ah, Queen Victoria, of course.
Right. This is where we see the invention of the tiered cake and, crucially, the use of pure white icing.
Which was a big deal back then.
Huge deal. At the time, refined white sugar was incredibly expensive.
Oh, right.
So creating a massive cake covered in stark white icing wasn't just an aesthetic choice. It was the ultimate flex of wealth and social status.
Wow.
That's why it became known as royal icing.
So the cake transitioned from a literal fertility charm to basically a billboard advertising the family's bank account.
Essentially, yes.
But the sources note that in the modern USA and Canada, the cutting ceremony has evolved again.
Quite a bit.
It now represents 3 very distinct symbols.
Right.
The first one is unity and partnership, which is, the act of the couple holding the knife together.
Yes.
And I was thinking about this, and holding the knife together isn't just a cute, frozen pose for the cameras. It is essentially a culinary trust fall.
A culinary trust fall.
It's the very first official team project of the marriage.
What's fascinating here is how literal that visual symbolism is for the community watching. I mean, you have two individuals taking a single tool, they're wrapping their hands around it together, and they're applying joint pressure to achieve a shared goal.
That's so true.
In a room full of people, they are physically demonstrating teamwork in its purest, most basic form. It's essentially a pantomime of their new shared life.
Oh, I love that. Pantomime. Which flows right into the second symbol, right? The commitment to sharing life.
Exactly.
Which is the actual act of feeding each other the slice they just cut.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the act of feeding someone else is one of the most fundamental, primal, human expressions of care.
Oh, totally. Like from infancy, right?
Yes, from infancy, being fed is how we understand we are safe and nurtured. So by feeding each other in front of their community, the couple is making a very public vow. It's a vow played out in frosting.
Played out in frosting, yeah.
They promise to nurture and sustain one another for the rest of their lives.
But here's my question. If this is entirely about their private vow to nurture each other, why do they immediately turn around and feed it to 150 watching guests?
Well, that brings us to the third symbol.
Prosperity and good fortune.
Right.
Tradition dictates that the cake must be shared with everyone in the room.
And that's because those guests aren't just crowding the dance floor to see what flavor the caterer baked.
Right, they don't really care about the red velvet.
Exactly. Sociologically speaking, they are there to serve as a legal and social jury.
A jury, wow.
They are witnesses to this promise of shared responsibility. So when the couple turns and shares the cake with the room, they are basically recreating that ancient Roman tradition of sharing the luck.
Just without making people eat crumbs off the floor.
Precisely. No floor crumbs required. They are extending their new household's prosperity and inviting the community to partake in their joy.
So what does this all mean when we get down to the actual execution? I mean, having all this heavy ancient symbolism is fantastic in theory. But we are talking about live events with tight schedules and restless crowds.
Yes, the logistics are huge.
How does a couple actually execute this first joint task without bringing the entire party to a grinding halt?
Well, event logistics are really where the romance meets reality.
Right.
The business planning guides on Weddizer emphasize that the timing of the cake cutting is perhaps the most critical logistical pivot of the entire wedding reception.
The most critical pivot.
Yeah. In most North American weddings, this happens specifically after dinner, just before the dancing begins.
Which is a brilliant piece of event psychology when you think about it.
It really is.
Like, think about your own experience as a guest. You've just finished a heavy meal.
You're full.
You've listened to speeches.
Yeah.
The energy in the room is naturally lulling. You are basically just waiting for something to happen.
Exactly. You need a reset.
Yeah. The cake cutting acts as the ultimate party transition. It's the bridge moving you from the formal, seated, disciplined portion of the evening right into the chaotic, high-energy celebration.
It is the perfect bridge, provided the physical execution goes smoothly,
Right.
because the etiquette is very specific. The couple steps up, they hold the knife together, and tradition dictates that they must cut the bottom tier first.
Okay, I have to push back on the bottom tier rule.
Oh!
Yeah. Is cutting the bottom tier first actually a profound tradition? Or is it just a structural necessity so a 40-pound cake doesn't topple over and ruin a $5,000 dress?
Well, it is a beautiful intersection of both.
Okay.
Structurally, cutting into the top of a stacked, soft dessert is a recipe for disaster.
Obviously.
But symbolically, the bottom tier is the foundation of the cake. So just as this moment represents the foundation of their new life together, they are instructed to build from the bottom up.
Oh, that makes an incredible amount of sense.
Right.
And it really explains why the aesthetic details around this transition are treated so seriously. I noticed the sources specifically talk about the importance of the cake knife itself.
Yes, the knife is a big deal.
Couples aren't just using a plastic serrated blade from the catering kitchen. They use ornate, decorative sets, sometimes engraved family heirlooms.
It acts as a visual anchor to signal to the room that a significant transition is occurring.
A visual anchor.
Yeah, and that visual anchor is necessary because navigating this transition determines the success of the guest experience.
How so?
Well, the Weddizer business metrics actually show that if a couple cuts the cake, but the catering staff takes an hour to actually serve the slices to the
All
tables,
the work.
right, you completely lose that symbolic connection of shared prosperity.
Yeah, people just get annoyed.
Exactly. The guests get bored, the energy drops, and that whole community witness aspect just dissolves into annoyance. The execution has to match the symbolism.
Okay, so we have spent the last 10 minutes establishing that this ritual is a beautiful foundational symbol of mutual care.
Yes.
It's a primal expression of nurturing and a solemn community promise,
Mm-hmm.
which naturally brings us to a massive contradiction.
I know where you're going with this.
Why do perfectly reasonable people choose to aggressively smash that sacred symbol of mutual care directly into their new spouse's face?
Ah, yes. The great cake smash debate.
It's insane.
It is arguably the most controversial moment in modern wedding culture.
Seriously. Because isn't a cake smash the exact opposite of the nurturing promise?
You would think so.
From a sociological standpoint, are we just watching a performative degradation ritual right after they promise to protect each other? It feels less like a vow and more like a high school food fight.
That's a really valid perspective, but it raises an important question about the psychology of the modern wedding day.
Okay.
A wedding is an incredibly high-pressure, solemn, heavily choreographed environment.
That's true.
By the time the couple reaches the cake cutting, they have been on stage for hours. So for some couples, the smash actually acts as a psychological pressure valve.
A pressure valve.
Yeah, it's a sudden, sharp release of tension.
So it's basically a rebellion against the formality of the day.
Precisely. Couples face a fork in the road during this ritual. They can choose the sweet route, which is, a gentle, romantic feeding that creates timeless, elegant memories.
Right.
Or they can choose the playful route. Now, the sources are absolutely uncompromising on one detail regarding the smash.
Which is?
Mutual comfort and consent are paramount. A surprise cake smash is considered a massive breach of trust.
Oh, yeah, that would be awful.
Right. But when both partners enthusiastically agree to it beforehand, the smash serves as a public declaration of their specific dynamic.
Nice.
They're showing their community that they don't take themselves too seriously and that their marriage is going to include laughter, messiness, and playfulness.
Okay, that makes sense. And this is where we see a really fascinating cultural divide pop up in the sources, specifically between the USA and Canada.
Yes, the border makes a big difference here.
The way this tradition is handled completely changes depending on which side of the border you are on.
It does. The underlying ritual is identical, but the stylistic execution reveals very subtle cultural lenses. Right.
In the USA, weddings historically lean toward the dramatic and the performative.
Very much so.
So you are much more likely to see a theatrical, full-on cake-smashing moment. The guests almost expect it. It functions as entertainment, almost like a comedy routine built into the reception timeline.
Whereas Canadian weddings, historically speaking, tend to lean more toward elegance and understated humor.
Exactly.
The sources indicate you might see a playful dab of frosting on the nose, but a full contact cake smash is far less common.
Though it is worth noting that modern Canadian couples are increasingly embracing these dramatic, playful trends too.
Sure. But it perfectly illustrates how two neighboring cultures can take the exact same sociological tool, the cutting and feeding of the cake, and interpret it entirely differently.
Yeah, the American execution often embraces spectacle and individual expression, while the traditional Canadian execution leans into communal elegance and restraint.
Yet both are fundamentally celebrating that same shared joy.
Absolutely. Here's where it gets really interesting for anyone currently navigating the modern wedding industry.
Oh, yeah.
We have these ancient rules, these deep sociological implications, and these strict cultural expectations. But modern couples are completely reinventing the ritual.
They really are.
Like if you read the niche planning guides on Weddizer, you see this massive shift toward hyper-personalization. Modern wedding planning isn't a strict script anymore.
It's really not.
It's more like a modular soundboard where couples can just slide the faders up on personal touches and slide the faders down on traditional expectations.
The modular soundboard is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. We are seeing a significant move away from the towering, tiered fondant cake altogether.
Thank goodness fondant is terrible.
Right. Couples are analyzing what the tradition means to them and substituting the physical object.
Like what?
Well, we see couples cutting into massive donut walls, sharing delicate macarons, or curating elaborate dessert tables featuring dozens of options.
I love that shift.